Hey, what's going on, everybody? James here, and we are back today with another watch review. So today we are talking about a very interesting brand called Heinrich Watches. Now, this is something that I stumbled onto for the first time a few months back at the Minutes and Hours show in my locale here, and really found the brand curious. Had never seen it before. The design caught my eye. Of course, you know I love guilloché dials. So that's what led me to this one. So Heinrich Watches is based in Stuttgart, Germany. And Wolfgang, who is the founder of the brand, he had this fascination with vintage watches from the 1970s, but also by German design principles that emphasize things like functionality, durability, and understated character in a watch. So that is how the brand came to be, and that's how we arrived at this watch today. So the model we're talking about today is the Radiance Guilloche Swirl. Now, the Radiance Guilloche watches were released in June of 2025, and then later on in November, the Swirl model came out. So this model is the Swirl. It's got this almost arabesque looking pattern of guilloché on the dial, which we'll talk about. And it does come in two different variants. So this is the turquoise variant. There's also a burgundy option as well. It doesn't have an official reference number. It's just called the Radiance Guilloche Swirl. Now, looking at the case, the material itself is 316L stainless steel, so a very solid and very commonly used stainless steel in this one. The case size itself is 38.5 millimeters in diameter. Then if we look at the thickness of the case, it is actually very thin. We're talking about just over 8 millimeters thick because of the movement that's in it, so we'll look at that in a second. The lug width is 20 millimeters. So you'll find that I actually have this on a separate strap, which we'll talk about. And the lug-to-lug dimension on this is 46 millimeters. So if you have a small wrist like mine, which is about just under 15 centimeters in circumference, you'll be able to wear this one just fine, and it is very wearable. Now the movement is an ETA 7001. So it's a manual wind watch. Now this is the main reason for the thickness of the watch, because the caliber itself is just about 2.5 millimeters thin, which is pretty amazing. The power reserve is 42 hours. It does have a 3 hertz beat rate, which means its frequency is 21,600 vibrations per hour, and it does have 100 meters of water resistance. So let's throw this on the wrist. Again, I do think it fits me well, and so if your wrist is anything in the ballpark of mine or larger, you'll be able to wear it just fine. And I think, again, I'm pulling this pretty tight. The lugs are just a little bit inside of my wrist here, but I think this is an easy watch to wear, and it is very comfortable because of how flat the watch itself is. Now, looking at some of the other features here. As I mentioned, this comes with a factory bracelet, and it's a beautiful bracelet. It's kind of this multi-link stainless steel bracelet, also made of 316L. However, the problem that I did find, so I'm going to call this out, is based on my wrist size, I was not able to size the bracelet down to the size of my wrist. So even when I had all the screws removed, the bracelet itself was still a little bit too large for me. So that's why I had to throw it on this separate strap. Now you can see this is a Reuter strap. If you know, you know. But I did think the color matched it quite beautifully, so that's why I figured it would be an easy one to throw on. Now on the factory bracelet, you do get a nice butterfly clasp, which has a dual release trigger. So you have to press both sides down in order to release the bracelet. So it is very sturdy. As far as the width of the bracelet, there is a slight taper down to about 16 millimeters, and it's got a very nice look. This was one of the things that impressed me in person the first time when I got to actually handle this watch. Was the bracelet is kind of unlike any style that I've seen on a modern watch, and that was something that I really did like. Another thing to note about the bracelet is it does have quick release push buttons on the inside. So all you need to do is just press the button and it will just come right out from the case. So that does make it easy if you want to swap straps, put on something different like what I have on right now, without having to need any tools to remove the bracelet from the case. Now, let's talk about probably the most interesting part of this to me, which is the dial. So as I mentioned, this is a guilloché pattern. Now, guilloché simply means that there's some sort of a dial base, and then through various methods, there's a pattern that gets cut into the actual dial base. Now, the dial base itself is brass. I did confirm that. And the pattern itself is cut with a CNC machine. So you know that on some watches, the guilloché is actually done by hand. That is not the case here, so don't be confused about it. However, it is lovely, and it still has a really fascinating reflective quality to it. So I'm kind of indifferent to the fact that it's done by a machine, because I just think it looks that fantastic. So you have this kind of spiral or wave type of pattern. And again, it has almost an arabesque type of look where you have a little bit of a rounded spiral or a rounded radial guilloché starting from the center of the dial. Again, the turquoise color is great. I do love this type of a blue. A sky blue color is probably the closest thing that I can describe the color to. It just has this very, very bright, very summery type of color. Now there is AR coating on both sides of the crystal here. So as you can see, you don't really notice the crystal at all. I've got a light over on the right here where you can see it, and there's one up there, but other than that, there's not a ton of reflectiveness on this crystal. It does have a very nice look to it. Now the logo itself of the brand is actually the face of a lion, and the Heinrich logo was inspired by the historic coat of arms of Baden-Württemberg, which is the German state where Heinrich Watches was founded and is currently based. So the original coat of arms features 3 lions symbolizing strength, heritage, and regional identity. So for the logo, Heinrich wanted to create a modern and distinctive interpretation of this rather than a direct reproduction. So that's how you end up with just the single lion. So the result of that is this stylized lion head that kind of subtly references the roots that the company has in Stuttgart and Baden-Württemberg while maintaining a clean, contemporary design language still. And it kind of reflects that balance between heritage and modernity with the watch. Now, when you're taking a look at the rest of the dial, you do have Dauphine style hands here, which have Swiss BG9 Superluminova in the center. So you do have a little bit of lume. You have a small seconds register down at 6 o'clock with kind of a concentric circle pattern that you can see in there, also fairly reflective. Looking at the hour markers themselves, if you've ever seen Grand Seiko Evolution 9 style design cases, it actually resembles that a bit. Now, obviously the material is probably different here. They use 316L stainless also to make the hour markers, but they are diamond polished to give you the maximum clarity and enhance kind of that light play as well as the legibility on the dial. So they did a really nice job with what these look like. They're kind of narrower than what you would find on a Grand Seiko. There is also lume outboard of those indices. So as you can see, there are these little square apertures along the minutes track, and those also have lume on them. So if you're looking at this watch in the dark, you can tell the time just fine because you've got the hour markers around the outside, and then you've got the hands that are lumed as well. So this does work in the dark. Looking at the case itself, it is brushed along the sides here, but then you have a lot of polishing happening as well. So you can see the bezel itself is polished, which is nice. And then there's this kind of bevel that splits the case right on the edge. So you've got this outer bevel and an inner bevel, almost a little bit like an Omega in a way. But this polished bevel runs all the way along the case to the top and bottom of each of the lugs. And so that's creating this kind of very dimensional looking case. You know, it's not plain. There's kind of some nuance and intricacy to it. Again, looking at this, it's pretty thin. And then if you look at the crown, of course, you can see the Heinrich logo back on the crown as well. It is a push down crown, so it's not a screw down crown. So all you have are 2 modes. One is winding the watch. And then if I pull the crown out, It does not hack the movement. So the 7001 from ETA, it doesn't have a hacking seconds function, but that's okay because you still get 100 meters of water resistance nonetheless, which is fantastic. Now flipping it over, taking a look at the movement, like I say, this is an ETA 7001 and it is a nice looking movement. So if you're seeing here, there is Côte de Genève that runs horizontally across the movement. There are fire blued screws that are in here as well. You can see there's 17 jewels. You've got the Heinrich logo at the bottom, and there is some nice finishing on both the barrel and the winding system as well. So overall, a very nice looking movement and impressively fitting into, again, less than 2.5 millimeters thick. And you can see the balance beating away at that 3 hertz beat rate. So as you can see, it's got the Heinrich Watches in Stuttgart, and then it's got the Radiance, which is the name of the watch. I also really like that name. And you can see the numbered edition right down here at the bottom. So that's what you're getting with this watch. So overall, again, I do really like this one. It's kind of just a fun watch to own. It's a neat design. The guilloché really shines in the light and it's very reflective. So again, you all know I love guilloché dials. I'm not thrown off by the fact that this one is a very inexpensive piece relative to the rest of my collection. Because again, to me, that's what watch collecting is all about. It's like if you find something that's really neat and you like it and it fits into what you would actually use it for, then you've got to be open to looking at some of those pieces. And I'm glad that I was because I already am enjoying this one. So I did reach out to Heinrich about the bracelet. I'm trying to see if they do offer a smaller version of it that I can wear on my wrist because I was definitely looking forward to using the bracelet just because of how unique the shape and the style of it were. So hopefully I'll hear back from them and can get myself a smaller bracelet. Until then, I'll be wearing it on this lovely turquoise kind of sky blue rubber strap from Reuter. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed it and definitely take a look at Heinrich. I'm not promoting them. I actually own this watch and I am loving it. So thanks for stopping by and I'll talk to you all next time. Bye-bye.